Hey, why Vinay Kumar? Hi, I'm Ria. I'll assess your GenAI QA automation, Python, testing, and problem solving skills. Please explain your thinking as we discuss technical scenarios. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you?
Good to hear. I'll be focusing on your experience with GenAI and prompt engineering, automation frameworks in Python, and debugging approaches. Does that
hmm
sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Today's session should take about 30 minutes. A recruiter from the team may also be on the call and might chime in to chat with you directly. When that
Sure.
happens, I'll step back and let you talk, and I'll pick back up once they hand the conversation to me. Are you ready to begin?
Yes.
Perfect. Before we get into technical questions, I'd like to understand your recent work. What's been taking most of your time lately at work?
Uh, Planning for the test. So I work in two different projects. I'm the primary SDET. So my responsibility is to maintain the test frameworks for both the projects. And I'm so these two applications are web-based applications, and they are ML-based applications. One is called Financial Manager, where we predict the financial uh, expenses that any clinical trial project requires. So basically, I'm going a little uh, too much into that. Okay, so my responsibilities will be to add new test cases, to create test plans, and maintain the existing framework, and check the daily run reports, and see if there are any test cases that are failing and triage them to see if the failures are actually product defects or if they are um, script issues, and fix them to maintain these frameworks and add more tests to these frameworks and give sign-offs to the new features. And this will be my primary responsibility. And my work looks like I use a tool called Cursor. It's a AI based IDE, so for writing code. Earlier, we used to use PyCharm with their AI tool called Juno. Then we completely shifted to Cursor. It's very powerful tool. It comes with a lot of inbuilt agents, and it has inbuilt browser MCP, which helps us explore and automate web applications using Cursor.
Got it. Maintaining test frameworks for AI based web apps and using AI tools like Cursor sounds interesting. You
Mhm.
mentioned adding new test cases and troubleshooting failures. How do you use
Mhm.
prompt engineering or GenAI capabilities specifically within those testing frameworks?
Sure. Yeah. Mm, Basically, uh, we need to the prompt engineering part is very important. So the more precise the prompt is, the accurate the output from any agent. So I'm using just LLMs for only for the test planning. When it comes to test code generation, I use agents. Agents are more goal oriented. They just go back and forth. They test the code they write, and then they come up. They work until they reach a certain goal, and then I'll be able to uh, review the code that it gives me. Uh, Simple LLM would just suggest me some code, and then I'll have to put it into a file and then test it. So yeah, again about regarding the prompt engineering. So the prompts themselves are very important, and and nowadays we are not giving all the details in the prompts. We have other tools like skill documents, cursor rule documents, and we lay out the guidelines for coding and the practices that we have in our current test framework and the coding conventions that the agent needs to follow. So every time I give a prompt, ask it to generate a code or fix a particular test case or come up with a test plan, it will go ahead and refer to these rule documents or skill documents and take them as guidelines whenever it does any task.
Sounds like you built context for the AI agents with rule documents and coding conventions as part of your prompt engineering. Can you
Yeah,
share how you structure those prompts or context so the AI agent consistently follows the right guidelines for your Python test automation framework?
sure. A good prompt would look something like this for me. Like I would need to lay out the details, the state of the application, what I am trying to achieve, and I need to be specific about what components we are testing, and I need to be precise about what I'm expecting out of it. Which components am I verifying? What is the end goal? So the context and the details and the expectations and the clear expectations and any guidelines uh, if I wanted to use any specific test data, the test data files, I need to point to those test data files. And yeah, the more detailed and precise the prompt is, the accurate the results will be.
Thanks for explaining your prompt structure. When you mention test data files and state of the application, how do you integrate that into your automation framework? Are these prompts part of a fully automated workflow that triggers test generation or updates?
Uh, we do not have a fully automated one. We have a human in the loop uh, workflow right now. So whenever there is a Jira for new uh, feature, I would I would manually work on cursor to come up with the test plan, to create a test plan. And Cursor is really good at navigating through the website using its inbuilt browser MCP. And it will come up with some uh, test plan, a lot of test cases it would give us. And it won't be perfect. We have to sit through it and analyze, and we have to do edge case analysis. We have to add our own thoughts to it. And once we refine this test plan, and we pick each test case, we go one by one to generate the actual code. So yeah, if the test case is too much too complicated, then we would make it into different parts, and then give appropriate prompts to these cursor agents to generate the specific code part, and then we will be able to integrate the whole thing.
Got it. So there's iterative human refinement with AI generated test plans and chunked prompt driven code creation. How do you verify and validate the AI generated test code? Do you run specific PyTest validations or employ Allure reporting in your framework?
Yes, I have been working with PyTest and Allure reports for over 6 years. Even before the AI is a thing, when I was writing code manually by myself, I worked with PyTest and Allure reports. I have experience in integrating Allure reports with PyTest and other frameworks like Behave for BDD frameworks. There is another framework called Slash, similar to PyTest, and even with that, I have experience integrating Allure reports into such frameworks. And I have experience with the Allure API. Allure comes with an inbuilt API which allows us to customize these reports to add any more details that we may need for our specific project, or dynamically add if a test fails, if there is any active defect for that, to add that defect ID into the report dynamically, or any other details we can add dynamically while the test is running into the Azure reports. I know such customizations.
Thanks. You clearly know PyTest and Allure well and even custom API use. Helpful context. Shall we talk about your use of GitHub Copilot? How have you used GitHub Copilot to improve your software testing or test automation tasks?
So I have not worked with GitHub Copilot. So for the AI tools, right, I work with Cursor. Cursor comes with a lot of LLMs built in. I tested multiple LLMs like Claude's, Opus LLMs, Gemini's, Google's Gemini LLMs and OpenAI's ChatGPTs, different versions of those, and Cursor also comes with an auto mode, which automatically picks appropriate LLM. And it has agentic mode within it. Yeah, so I work mostly with Cursor. In our organizations, we only have Cursor license, so I've not worked with, I haven't got chance to work with GitHub Copilot, but I've worked with GitHub itself for version control, for CI to write CI/CD pipelines using GitHub Actions and stuff. Yeah,
Understood. You've leveraged several LLMs via Cursor but not GitHub Copilot directly. You mentioned using GitHub Actions for CI/CD pipelines. Can you describe one specific pipeline you built that supports test automation and how it integrates with your Python testing framework?
sure. So for every framework that I work on, I have to maintain the CI/CD pipeline as well. And with GitHub Actions, and we do that with GitHub Actions. Earlier, we had the older system had Jenkins, but we migrated to GitHub Actions. It's more simpler and straightforward. So the pipelines I've written just helps to run our regression test suite every night, and uh, and by morning I would get the Allure reports generated so that I can take a look at them and see and analyze the report.
Thanks for sharing that. When your integration tests run in the CI pipeline, how do you handle flaky or intermittent test failures? Does your framework or pipeline include any logic or tooling to automatically retry or flag such cases?
Yes, we have a retry mechanism. So if any test case fails, we rerun that once at the end of the report. We pick all the failed or broken test cases. If we will run it through our actively open test defects, and for any particular test case, if an open defect is tagged, we will leave them, and then for the rest of the test cases, we will rerun those test cases. If the test case fails again, we will take it as a defect. Then I have to intervene and take a look whether to see if there is a script issue or there is an actual application defect. But there is one rerun if a test case fails in the pipeline.
Thanks for explaining your retry logic. Can you walk me through step by step what happens in your framework from when a test fails initially to when it's either marked flaky, retried, or flagged as a defect? What scripts or tools automate these steps?
We use Python across the board. So when I get all your reports, we can also export this into the suit into uh, CSV file, and I would export that. There is a script that exports that into CSV file, and we have a script that looks into this, reads the CSV file, and picks all the test cases that are categorized as failed or broken. And for every failed or broken test case, there is a column where the active defect is mentioned. Within the LU report, it will be attached when the test fails or when the test fails. So that will be present in the CSV file. So from those failed or broken test cases, whichever test cases does not have uh, a defect ID in the defect ID column, we would just pick those and rerun the test cases. If the test case passes, it will be marked as pass in the further report. If it fails again, then it'll have the same state, failed or broken, and I will have to take a look at those failed test cases to determine whether they are flaky script issues or there is an active application defect that is causing these tests to fail. That is when we make the decision. That is when, if the test is flaky, and then I'll have to work on that to fix it, to refine it.
Got it. You have a Python script processing Allure report exports to CSV for rerun logic based on defect IDs. How do you use GenAI or AI agents to help identify flaky tests or root cause analysis beyond this manual step? Why Vinay Kumar? Your explanation shows a solid automated retry strategy using Python scripts and CSV export from Allure reports to filter tests without defect IDs for rerun. Can you also describe how you approach root cause analysis when a test failure isn't straightforward? For example, with an intermittent bug or simulator inconsistency. What tools or methods do you use to debug and analyze such failures?
Uh, So with inconsistent or intermittent failures, I think that we need to establish the precondition at which it failed to identify the precondition, the state it was, the state in which the system was when it failed. So if we identify that, the most of the problem will be solved. We need to run the test a bunch of times to see and wait for it to fail. Usually, to identify that, since I have access to Cursor, I use Cursor and I try a bunch of different application states to see where it fails. And we also collect a lot of logs when a test case fails, like screenshots, and we use a tool called Selenoid, which records a video of the application while the test case is running. So we have the evidence to see at what condition the test failed. So with that, we'll be able to understand why the test failed, and it'll be easier for us to reproduce the scenario and to debug that.
Thanks for that detailed debugging approach using state precondition, video recordings with solenoid, and reproducing failures. When
Mhm.
you run these repeated tests to trigger flaky issues, how do you decide when to quarantine a test or mark it flaky in your framework, rather than block the build or raise an immediate defect?
Uh, Simple thing, like if a test is failing, and if I go and see the feature is actually working, then it's a flaky test. And depending on how often it gives me false failure, uh, depending on that, uh, I'll mark it as flaky. Usually, I'll have to run these tests manually or take Cursor's help, and I can just prompt Cursor to run these things using inbuilt browser MCP and see whether these features are actually working or not. Cursor will be able to do that and take screenshots of the applications for me if I don't have enough time to run these scenarios again manually.
Understood. You leverage manual checks plus AI agents like Cursor for quick feature verification to decide flakiness.
Mhm.
Let's shift to test coverage. How do you use GenAI or AI tools to measure and improve your automated test coverage over time?
Yeah. So every time I create a test plan, I spend some time on Cursor to plan to include all the edge cases. What are the possibilities? What user uh, can do with any given feature? And so there will be a back and forth between I and A and the cursor, and I will also uh, run it through some explorative uh, analysis. Cursor with the inbuilt browser MCP can perform some explorative scenarios other than natural use case scenarios and come up with any possible edge cases that may cause the application to fail. And we try to include all these scenarios in our test plan.
Great mix of AI collaboration and exploratory testing to enhance coverage. You mentioned working with ML applications at IQVIA. How do you validate ML outputs in your test automation? Are your test frameworks able to assess model predictions or accuracy automatically?
So we have our reference documents. We have multiple methods of validating the model accuracy. Uh, so our models are not have work on very narrow data, which is company specific. They work on uh, analyzing and generating documents that are related to the company. And specific, to be precise, there are around 26 documents, and these LLMs are these are not LLMs, but small ML models are trained to work on these documents. So the data that we need to validate is very narrow. So with that, we have reference documents. Whenever we get a response from these models, we will be able to validate easily. We will cross-reference these outputs with the reference documents we have and see how accurate they are.
Thanks, that's helpful. How do you automate that validation process? Do you write test
Y-
scripts that pass model output and compare it against expected values or reference documents?
Yes. So earlier there used to be test cases that run through a text-based validation, but now since we have access to LLMs, we run the output from our ML model and then the reference document through an LLM, and we again have uh, cursor rules to see that determine how the ML output should be and how close the accuracy should be with the reference document. So these LLMs would follow the guidelines mentioned in the cursor rules, look at the output from the ML models and the reference documents, and match them and give us a lot of details like where the ML model is hallucinating, what percentage of the answer is accurate, or if there are any inaccuracies. And these LLMs would give us a report. And we also have a ruled document to uh, to generate the report in a specific way, that the tables we need, that the data we want to see in the output report. So yeah, that's how we do it.
Good. You're using LLMs to compare ML model output to reference docs with custom rules and generate detailed accuracy reports. To wrap up coverage, how do you decide which test levels, functional, integration, regression, or system, are automated versus manual? What drives your test strategy choices?
Most of our test cases are automated, and yeah, integration tests are to test the integration of the system, to test whether the back end, the front end, and the databases, and if you're using any vendor LLMs, whether these things are integrated, the integrations are working, the API keys are working, the DB connections are working, the APIs are pulling the correct data. So such test cases I would mark as integration tests, and all the functionality validations and the feature validations, I would mark it as functional, and all the important test cases that I need to run every day. Uh, all the key functionalities, I would put it under regression, and yeah, that's how I would segregate or mark my test cases and run them appropriately.
Thanks. So you categorize tests by scope: integration for API and data flow, functional for features, and regression for daily important tests. One last topic. Since you led testing activities at IQVR for ML projects, what's one architecture or design decision you made in your automation framework that had a big impact?
Ah, so we when we started working with the AI, and I got my hands on this tool called Fast MCP. It's a very simple tool where we can uh, write uh, MCPs for any tool, like for any Windows tools or any web applications. It's a very simple one, simple framework we can build. It comes with tools, resources, and prompts. We can map any APIs or any functions to this MCP server, and we were able to implement a small MCP with just 5 tools in it. And these 5 tools were very frequently used by our end customers. So the user don't have to log into the system and navigate through the UI. If they have uh, any LLM set up in their uh, laptop or phone, which has access to our system, which is connected to the VPN, they can add our MCP to their laptop and then query the details from through the LLM, and this LLM agents can retrieve data, query our MC, connect to our MCP, and get the data to them.
That sounds like a strategic use of MCP for remote access and LLM querying. How did you integrate this MCP solution with your existing Python test automation framework?
It is not integrated in the test automation framework. It was integrated into the application itself. We spawned a new server and then we hosted this MCP server there. It We integrated it into the our backend server, and just like a front end would query would connect to our backend server and retrieve the data. Uh, for these five MCP tools, uh, these five MCP tools would connect to our backend APIs, specifically five APIs. It is just a read-only mode. We would retrieve data just for the customers to see uh, some frequently queried data.
Okay, why Vinay Kumar? To clarify, how did the MCP based solution help improve your testing or quality assurance process? Did it enable new kinds of automated tests, faster debugging, or better monitoring?
It is not related to a testing one. It is application improvement idea that I was able to give and participate in the implementation. Uh, it is outside my testing activities.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying that the MCP integration was an application feature you contributed to rather than part of your testing framework. That's helpful context. We're almost out of time. Is there any final point you'd like to highlight about your experience with GenAI powered QA automation?
So, if you want to know about my experience with testing related MCPs, my usage of MCPs within the testing, I worked with some MCPs like Jira has their own MCP, Confluence has their own MCP. So I worked with these things. I experimented with these things. Especially the Confluence one. So we add the reports, the performance test reports and stuff to Confluence page. And if we connect this Confluence MCP to the cursor, and we can simply give the URL of the report of the performance test report and point to the Confluence page. It will extract the data from the report and update the Confluence page by itself. And that is one area that I used MCPs in my testing workflow, where I need to update the reports in the Confluence. The MCP helped me to do that, to automate that.
Thanks. That's a great use of MCP for automating test report updates in Confluence. We're roughly halfway, about 15 more minutes. How do you ensure your PyTest automation suite scale well for system and performance testing?
For performance testing, I don't. It's a different framework. I worked with a tool called K6, and we have to write the scripts in TypeScript or JavaScript. So it is not integrated with the PyTest. But for the automation tests, I have integrated the test framework that I use for regular automation tests is PyTest. And for scalability, uh, the key for scalability is to make each test independent. Uh, it is I follow this practice of uh, keeping every test case independent and not linking any multiple test cases. So for every test case, there should be its own precondition and closure. Linking multiple test cases would interfere with parallel execution and stuff.